像学母语一样学英语，听月亮和六便士英文故事。
Once there was a man named Charles Strickland. He lived in London in a comfortable house with his wife and 2 children. He seemed like a very ordinary man. He went to his job in the city every day. He worked with money and numbers. He wore a suit and a hat. He was not young, not old, just in the middle of his life. To everyone who knew him, he was just Strickland, a quiet, perhaps a little dull, but perfectly normal husband and father. Then one day something happened that no one could understand. Strickland did not come home from work. He did not come home the next day either. He had simply vanished. His wife was terribly upset. Her heart felt like it had been dropped and shattered into 1,000 pieces. "Where did he go?" she cried to her friends. "Did he run away with another woman? How could he leave us like this?" She felt lost and ashamed. She couldn't understand how the life she knew had just disappeared, like a puff of smoke. A young writer who knew the Strickland family felt very sorry for Strickland's wife. He, like everyone else, thought Strickland must have found a secret love and left his family for her. It was a sad story, but one that happened sometimes. So this writer, wanting to help or perhaps just to understand, went to Paris because he heard Strickland had gone there. He thought he would find Strickland with a new lady, perhaps feeling a little guilty, but also happy. But what he found was very different and much stranger. Strickland was in Paris, yes, but he was not with any woman. He was living in a tiny, dirty room in a very poor part of the city. He looked thin, like he didn't eat very much. He wore old, torn clothes. And what was he doing? He was painting. He said he had left everything, his job, his home, his family, just so he could paint. But why? The writer asked, completely puzzled. "You had a good life." Strickland just looked at him with cold eyes. "I have to paint," he said, as if it was the only thing in the world that mattered. "I just have to." He didn't sound sorry for his wife or his children. He didn't seem to care that he had broken their hearts. It was like a fire was burning inside him, a strange and powerful fever. This fire was his need to paint. It pushed out every other feeling, every other care. He was learning to paint, working hard day and night. He was often rude and unkind. He didn't care if people liked him or his pictures. He only cared about getting the colors and shapes from inside his head onto the canvas. It was like a demon possessed him. A demon that only wanted art. He felt he had to obey this demon, even if it made him a monster to others. Back in Paris, there was a painter named Durk Stroeve. Durk was a kind, gentle man, perhaps a little foolish in his kindness. He wasn't a great painter himself, though he painted cheerful, popular pictures. But Durk had a special gift. He could see the greatness in other artists, even when no one else could. When Durk saw Strickland's rough, strange paintings, he knew deep in his heart that Strickland was a genius, a truly great artist in the making. This was despite Strickland being very mean and insulting to Durk. Durk didn't mind. He just saw the amazing power in the paintings. One cold winter, Strickland became very, very sick. He had no money, no food, no one to care for him. He was close to dying. Kind Durk Stroeve found him, and even though Strickland had always been cruel to him, Durk's heart was full of pity. He couldn't leave even a dog to suffer like that. So Durk took Strickland to his own small warm home, to his wife, Blanche. Blanche Stroeve was a quiet woman with a sad past. Durk loved her more than anything in the world. Durk and Blanche nursed Strickland back to health. It took a long time. Strickland was a difficult patient, always grumpy and ungrateful. But when he was finally well, something truly terrible happened. Strickland, who had been saved by Durk's kindness, did not say thank you. Instead, he turned his cold eyes on Blanche, and Blanche, who had perhaps been lonely or unhappy, fell deeply, hopelessly in love with this strange, rude, powerful man. It was like she too was caught by his inner fire. Strickland took Blanche away from Durk. He didn't seem to care that he was destroying Durk's life, breaking Durk's gentle heart. Durk was devastated. He cried and pleaded, but Blanche left with Strickland. It was not because Strickland loved Blanche. He didn't seem to love anyone. He just took her. Their time together was short. Strickland painted her, but he was as cold and distant to her as he was to everyone else. Soon he grew tired of her. He told her to leave. Blanche, who had given up everything for him, was utterly broken. Her love had been like a fragile glass, and he had smashed it without a thought. She couldn't bear the pain and the emptiness. She did a terrible thing to herself. She took her own life. When the writer heard about Blanche, he felt sick with anger and disgust. He went to Strickland. "Don't you feel any remorse?" he cried. "She died because of you." Strickland just looked at him with those unfeeling eyes. "She was a foolish woman," was all he said. He showed no sadness, no guilt. It was as if her death was nothing more than a fly buzzing at the window. He just wanted to be left alone to paint. The writer couldn't understand. How could someone create things of such beauty and power, yet have a heart made of ice? Strickland soon left Paris. He felt nothing for the lives he had ruined. The fire inside him pushed him onwards. He travelled far away across oceans until he reached a beautiful, warm island in the South Seas called Tahiti. There, under the hot sun, among colourful flowers and kind, simple people, he found a different kind of life. He lived in a small hut. He married a young Tahitian woman named Ata. She was calm and gentle. She didn't ask many questions. She seemed to understand in a quiet way this strange man and his burning need to paint. She took care of him, brought him food, and left him alone with his canvases and colours. He painted and painted. He painted the island, the people, the strange, dark spirits he felt in the air. His paintings were still powerful, but perhaps a little less angry, a little more filled with the heat and mystery of the island. He didn't care about selling them. He didn't care about fame or money. Those were just sixpence common coins you find in the dirt. He was reaching for something else, something big and far away, like the moon. Years passed. Ada and Strickland had children. Then Strickland got a terrible sickness, leprosy. It was a dreadful disease that slowly destroyed his body. He became an outcast, but he did not stop painting. As he grew weaker and sicker, as his eyesight began to fail, the fire inside him burned even brighter. He began to paint on the very walls of his wooden hut. Ata, his loving wife, helped him, mixing his colours when his hands grew too weak, guiding his brush when he could no longer see. For 2 years, blind and dying, he painted his last great work all over the inside of their small home. The people who caught glimpses of it before the end said it was a masterpiece, a wild, terrifying, beautiful vision of the world he saw in his mind, full of strange gods and powerful emotions, a whole universe of colour and form. It was the culmination of his entire life, all his pain, his passion, his cruelty, and his genius poured onto those wooden walls. Just before he died, he made Atta promise him something. "When I am gone," he whispered, his voice weak, "you must burn this hut down. Burn it all. Make sure nothing is left." He didn't want the world to see his final vision, or perhaps he felt it was so personal, so much a part of his soul's torment and triumph, that it could not be owned or understood by anyone else. Atta loved him. She had shared his strange, lonely life. After he died, and after the authorities had taken care of things, she kept her promise. She set fire to the hut. The flames leapt high, consuming the wood, the paint, the final incredible masterpiece of Charles Strickland. Everything turned to smoke and ashes and drifted away into the warm Tahitian air. And so the story of Charles Strickland ended. He had chased his moon, his art, with a single-mindedness that was almost terrifying. He had trampled on every human kindness, every loving heart that came in his way, like they were merely sixpence coins beneath his feet. Was he a monster? In many ways, yes. Was he a great artist? Perhaps one of the greatest who ever lived. His life leaves behind a difficult question. If a man has a rare and wondrous gift, a fire that demands to be expressed, does it excuse the darkness he brings to the world? The ashes of his paintings offered no answer, only the lingering scent of a strange, consuming fire.